Fantastic. Andrew Tyrrell.
How the devil are we?
Very well. The time has finally come. Welcome to the Your PT podcast. This is our pilot episode. How are you feeling?
Oh, feeling good, mate. Thanks for having me. It's my pleasure. Been a good friend of your PTs, and I've been enjoying working with you guys over the last year or two. So, thanks for having me on.
It's an honour, absolute honour. I mean, first and foremost, and this is our first episode ever today. So, I personally cannot think of a better person to be sitting in front of me. I think we're going to get so much value out of your story and your industry kind of career pathway. It's going to be really insightful for the listeners. So in terms of your kind of industry involvement, what's it been, 20, 25 years?
It's been 25 years. Yeah, I've been in the fitness industry as a personal trainer for 25 years. 23 personal training, but we'll touch on what happened in the first two, I suppose, as we go through. But yeah, it's been a wonderful 25 years, to be honest with you. I fell in love with this industry a long time ago, and it's the love has never fallen out. Every single day, I still get butterflies in my stomach now when I go into work every morning. It's a job where I've trained a lot of people over the years who are in work for just money reasons, which we all have to go to work and earn money, but you have to find something that you love, and you'll know that because you'll never get tired of it. You won't be looking to change every 2 minutes, jump ship every 2 minutes. You'll never get tired of it, and it's an industry that can draw you in and keep you in. You just got to give it time, commitment, effort, and you got to give it love.
Yeah. No, I love that as well. That's amazing. I mean, it's quarter of a century all in.
Yeah.
And it's brilliant to see that the longevity of personal training is there. If you attack this with the right mindset and the right personality, there's a fantastic career to be had in personal training. Absolutely. How many times have you changed role in 25 years, And?
Not once, mate. I'm a boots on the ground personal trainer, and I came in this industry because I loved loved the thought of being a personal trainer, and I'm moulding myself to be a personal trainer. The problem with today, I think a lot of these new PTs want the industry to mould to them. I moulded to the industry, and I love the industry. We come into this industry usually because we're passionate about fitness, health, or nutrition. So it's kind of a hobby of ours that we want to convert into a business. The problem is we don't, a lot of PTs don't treat it like a business, and they don't position it like a business in their lives. But yeah, I'm still a boots on the ground PT, and I'll be a boots on the ground PT for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, hopefully. I absolutely love it. It's ticked nearly every financial box I've had, financial goal I've had. The work-life balance has been fantastic. And like I said, I'm skipping to work with a smile on my face. Yeah. Look forward to going into work every day. Yeah. So yeah, a zero change of roles in 25 years. I've barely even scratched the online stuff. Barely even scratched it. I might have made one little line in it if I was lucky,
That's fine. No, it's perfect, and it's great to hear. But I mean, we're going to dive into a lot of this today to see exactly what makes you tick, how you make that successful, viable career pathway. And I was thinking about this on the way in, actually. We met each other in a sporter. That's about 15 years ago in itself.
Right, yeah.
2010.
I've got a few more grey hairs since then, mate.
Well, I had hair. I've got no hair. But I mean, 15 years back in the sporter days, the industry, the landscape was extremely different to what we deal with today.
Yeah.
But I guess before we start as well, just to give some insight, we've got to know each other really well. We're really good mates outside of the business.
Absolutely.
I think you and your amazing wife Phyllis are two of the most resilient, positive people I've ever had the privilege of knowing.
That's kind of you.
I think there's some key traits there, actually, that personal trainers and fitness professionals can get to grips with to help them on their career journeys again. So let's get stuck into the questions. What inspired you, Anne, to become a personal trainer?
Well, when I left school, I knocked around a little bit. I'd done a year's bricklaying. After a year, quickly realised that was never for me, I went up to Steelworks for about 6 months, again realised. And then I went to do sports science in college. I thought my interest was in sport. I loved playing football. I was starting to get a gym feel as well. I was starting to attend the gym. So I thought, go and study sports science. And then, then you come out of college and uni, you still don't know what you want to do, like most people. So then I went to travel in Australia for 18 months. And one of the key things for me there was, I remember being in a gym and seeing how happy and smiley and enjoying their jobs personal trainers were. In this gym I was in Brisbane. And every day I was in there was a buzz around them all, chatting to them. I thought, these guys are in a job they love. And I could just feel it. You could just feel it from when I was on the building sites and talking to, builders who just, another 3.5 years I'd be out there. And there was just nothing there. And then it was a similar scenario in the steelworks. And I think I'd knocked around some jobs like in Walker's Crisps. I done a bit of M&S work part-time. That was a bit of fun, it was a bit of a vibe around there. Yeah. But again, it was never going to be a full-time thing. But I just remember the energy and happiness and smiling all the PTs had. Some of them used to walk past my apartment in Brisbane. And that's when I started perking up saying, you know what, I'm starting to love training, love my sport and fitness and health. This turned this into a career. So came home then, and that was the defining moment where, as I was flying home, I thought 100% I want to be a personal trainer, put the wheels in motion, and booked my course into the Premier International Training course straight into it.
Big player back in the day.
Absolutely fantastic organisation.
And it's not surprising. I mean, it's a sportsman's paradise, isn't it, Australia?
Yeah, 100%.
You've got the weather, you've got all year round, sport to be played.
Yeah.
And, great environment to really inspire you.
Yeah.
To go on that forward journey.
100%. And then it was like when I came home and I believe it or not, I didn't know if I was a member of a gym before I went out there. When I came home, I joined Kicks and it was the same sort of thing, a bit of a vibe and a buzz. And then you just saw PTs 25 years ago. They just had a buzz and a spring in their step. They were in a job that they loved. And everyone was looking up to PTs in them days, They were the pillars of the community, and everyone was really looking up to them, and it was a good place to be, it was a good goal, and I thought, that's exactly when the penny dropped. And when the penny drops, when you find something you love, it drops. But then that's just the idea. Then the hard work starts,
Yeah, of course. So it sounds like the seed was firmly planted from that experience in Australia.
100%.
You embarked on your education then.
Yeah.
Premier training.
Yeah.
What did the education pathway look like back then?
Oh. Well, I laugh, obviously I worked 13 years in a commercial gym, so I see how the educational system changed. Well, for me, it was I believe it might have been a 4-month course, 6 days a week, 10 to 11 hours a day. And the tasks, the exams and at the end to get through were brutal. Yeah. And there was no mucking around, And, people were failing left, right and centre. There was different modules of it. And a couple of them I scraped over the line from not putting the work in. And it sharpened me up for the latter ones. But I just remember it was a tough old course. And if we were going up to a car full of us from Swansea. I was picking up a lad in Porthcawl, and it was one lad on the outskirts of Cardiff and doing it in Cardiff. And it was just such a tough course. They were, the Premier at the time were moulding high-end PTs to go into the industry, And when you got up there, even looking at everyone was in physical, mental shape, They were on their A game. And they had to be. As I said, the success rate was so, high. So the pass rate was so high. Yeah. If you weren't on your A game. And then over the last 25 years, well, we had a period where it just, these quick courses, it was just diminished. Yeah. And then we were releasing hundreds upon hundreds, if not thousands of PTs into our industry who hadn't done the hard yards. Yeah. And of course, our industry was getting flooded with this, over time. And it definitely took, really hit our industry hard, I think, know.
No, I agree. I totally agree. I mean, we work very closely with Active IQ and SimSpa, and we've seen the drop off in the industry, in terms of standards over the years. But I mean, going back then, if you think back to your course, and how many learners are still in the industry from when you studied?
Not many.
Okay. Yeah.
Are the ones who done the course
on your Premier course? Yeah.
Oh yeah. Lots of them were. There's a lot of military guys.
Okay.
When I went in to go on to that point, just when I went into this sport, I remember going in there, And Dan Madge, who I trained today, was my fitness manager. Well, he had a philosophy. You had to be Premier trained. So you had to have a Premier trained qualification.
So gold standard.
Gold standard. And then in there, we had a woman called Sue Cheeseborough, Olympic gold gymnast, right? Then you had everyone was in shape. It was ex-military boys, or it was ex-fitness people, or it was everyone was in the condition of their life, and all the PTs were bustling. They were really bustling. My first couple of years in the gym, we'll go into the story what I had to do in the first couple of years, but I remember they were all bustling, they were all booming, they were all hunting, they were all hungry. But you could have gone in there and picked one of 15 PTs who were all of such a good quality. And I guarantee all them would have stuck in the industry beyond my time in some shape or form. It was probably about maybe 5 to 10 years after I started where the real decline started coming in, the quality of people coming in and the rate they were coming in and leaving at the same pace. I don't even think their uniform had been washed. And it was like a conveyor belt. And this is what the industry's been proven of now. But in them days, I just remembered on the Premier course, just even physically to look at everyone. And we'll talk about that later, is, one thing, people will buy a personal trainer before they buy personal training. But the first thing they're going to do is see you. That's the first thing. So, and that's what I think Premier training was all about, really. It was about a bunch of people who were usually in fantastic condition, physically and mentally, and had that bounce and that energy. And top that up then, an intense 4-month course, which was hard to qualify for, and then they settled you into that industry, and I remember there was a lot of physical activity on the course as well. I remember all the PTs training together, learning together,
That's a big part of it, and bouncing ideas off each other. Arguably, it's probably the best part of an immersive course experience like that, is getting to know your colleagues, getting to bounce ideas around and practice, put them into practice.
Yeah,
so you never know if your theories are going to work in practice
100%
until you've applied it.
Yeah.
But the landscape of that has changed dramatically. We saw the resurrection of online education. It's come back to more of a hybrid learning style now, which I think a lot more fitness professionals are comfortable with. But we're in this day and age, aren't we, where people want instant gratification.
Oh, and 100%.
Don't want to sit on a course for 6 months. They want to get it done in 6 days. That's the reality.
And do it in the house.
Yeah, exactly. So I think there's a lot to be said for things like apprenticeship schemes.
100%, yeah.
Things of that nature. So, but back then in the day, the role of the fitness instructor was quite buoyant, wasn't it? It was quite, a heavy presence of fitness professionals, whether they be instructors or personal trainers, on your gym floor. It was probably before the budget gyms started coming into the UK market as well.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
It was back in, for those who don't know, Sporta back in the day was a commercial entity. It was a multi-purpose facility where you had swimming, kids' activities, food and beverage, Pilates, spin, gym. Everything was under one roof.
They might be one of the first health club sort of big chains, weren't they? They really nailed it down.
They were, They had a lot of growth. And it's interesting how many kind of leaders in our sector now have come from Sporta.
Yeah.
So I think it was, arguably ahead of its time.
I think
it was
so.
A great product.
Yeah.
And great facilities. But fast forward to the here and now, we got a different kind of culture and a different onboarding structure from an education to an application perspective. But go back to yours, Anne. What was your experience then when you finished your course and entered the industry? What did that look like back in 2010? Well, even before that.
Yeah, it was like 2000.
2000,
yeah. Well, I remember the funny story when I was driving over my course. We'd had a big night out to celebrate. We'd all passed. I think I told the story. I was driving down the motorway, and the health club's not far off the motorway from my house. And I remember thinking, well, I'll swing in. I had a pair of ripped jeans on, t-shirt, a beanie hat, pair of flip-flops. I just drove home from a big night in Cardiff, and I remember seeing this guy called Dan, the fitness manager, and I asked him, "Is any work?" And he must take one look at me. He said, I've just qualified from Premier. He was, it was all about Premier. You couldn't get in the sport in them days unless you had a Premier qualification. And he was pretty much like, well, I admire, the audacity of it. He said, "Are you free to start today?" And I started there and then. And what got me though, I was excited. Imagine how been at college and uni, been to Australia, spent a load of money. I was skint. I was ready to start working. and he put me on a £10,000 a year job as a fitness instructor for 2 years, and I wasn't allowed to personal train. I had to just walk around the gym, talk to people, open the gym, make other PTs coffees, talk, and I'd learn the trade. So you came into an industry where you had to really learn that trade. But I look back and I think it's probably the best thing anyone's ever done for me. If I'm looking back, and I still train that fitness manager day 3 times a week, so it's quite funny actually. He's evolved into the property, as a property tycoon. So it's a good story for PTs as well. PT, gym manager, property tycoon. They can be stepping stones. But yeah, them 2 years, I learned so much just watching the other PTs, doing my floor work, giving loads of tasters out. I was allowed to give some free tasters out, developing, myself, learning. And that's what the industry was about. You had a lot of good fitness instructors back in them days as well who were happy to be fitness instructors, work for the gym. They were more than happy. I had big ambitions to go forward. So after 2 years when my time was up, I remember it was supposed to be a transition period. And Dan said, look, maybe look for 6 to 12 months to get yourself as a full-time PT. But by the end of the month, I had to give up fitness instructing. I had no more time in my diary.
Wow.
I'd spotted a couple of niche markets. I realised there wasn't many women doing strength and conditioning. So I went in and could give all the women free tasters out. And I developed a relationship with lots of women in there, showing them some bits and bobs in a strength area. Their husbands wanted to sign up as well. Before I knew, my diary was chocker. But yeah, the industry then was very personal. It was very community based. I was writing little articles in community magazines and stuff. It was the health clubs and gyms were the centerpieces of the towns, shall we say? Everything was like you just stated, everything that was going on there. But that would have been, the big retention tool there, which we've learned to realise, would have been PTs. They are such a humongous retention tool. Gym managers never appreciated that because when you started earning more money, which wasn't long, club managers more than gym managers, they really, had a been a bonnet with PTs when they realised that the PTs would evolve quickly, earn good money. But yeah, it was a completely different landscape in them days. But what I would say is, as I said, the quality of personal trainers was so high and the caliber was so good. When clients came on board with you, they stuck. And when PTs came in, they were always good and they always built client bases quick. Nearly everyone, I remember back in the day, every new member came through the door, always had a PT, always wanted a PT. And if I'm thinking back, every single member had a PT. And that might be 3 sessions a week, 2 sessions a week, 1 session a week, maybe once a fortnight, maybe once every 3 weeks. But they were all associated to a PT. There was very few people walking the gym floor who didn't have an association with a PT. And I remember that like it was yesterday because, the sales team would always come in and Andy went anymore. I say, I'm fine, but Simon just started and Simon would get a few PT, clients, members come in, they wanted a PT. But probably due to the 10, 15 year spell we had where the quality went down and all the rest of it, maybe members are going into clubs now and they haven't got that buzz that they want a PT, but we can get back there, we can easily pull that back by the right infrastructure. But what you guys are trying to do with your PT is get them PTs in the marketplace strong and ready,
Yeah. No, it sounds like it's a great kind of journey and entry point into the industry. It's actually not too dissimilar to mine. Started as a fitness instructor, and you sharpen your tools.
Oh, definitely.
But I think nowadays, personal trainers going into the gym, they still have that ability. Yeah. They can still sharpen their tools. You need to, learn about communication. Yeah. You need to learn about positioning because it sounds to me, Anne, that you were super successful in the early days because you were putting yourself out there and you were positioning yourself as the go-to expert in your gym environment. But even now, all personal trainers can do that.
Yeah, of course they can.
They can, communicate with all the new members coming in. Yeah. Offer that, basic introduction, complimentary taster session. It's just basic stuff, but it's a numbers game, yeah?
Oh, yeah. It's I know a few local PTs that reach out to me and, they got 2-3 hours off, they got no one. And I'm like, you need to get on the gym floor. You need to, if you're going to train, pull a couple of members in with you. This is the stuff we were doing. I remember, you probably remember it, I used to have a group of boys. I do with some of my clients, some be their friends. I do some circuits and that with them. They'd all become your clients, and we'll talk about, the community-based activities we do. I'm sure we'll talk about that later. But when I first came in the industry, I was hungry 7 days a week, no no matter what time people wanted. I had a goal of what I wanted my diary to look like, but I knew that might take 5 years. It might take 10 years. I knew what I wanted to earn. And that's what young, PTs, not even young, modern day PTs are not doing. What do you want your business to look like? What do you want to earn? So say for argument's sake, say you want to earn £50,000 a year. I'll give you, that would be £60,000 in earnings time you pay tax and national insurance. Well, if you were doing 40 sessions a week, let's call it 48 working weeks. If you were doing 40 sessions a week at £30 an hour, that's £1,200 a week. Over 48 weeks, that's your 60 grand. There's a simple figure. So if you want to take on 50 grand, you can work out. Now you get a pen and paper. Now what days do you want to work? I realised I wanted to do 4 days a week. It took me 10 years to get there. And it took me a lot of Sunday nights and Saturday mornings and Friday nights and everything. But I wanted to do 4 months of days. I don't care what hours I do in them 4 days, Monday to Thursday. If you want a 2 a.m. slot, I'll be up there, I'll be waiting for you. Yeah. It's up to you. Yeah. But I knew I wanted a Friday, Saturday, Sunday off to enjoy where we live, where we had a lot of nice beaches, and I wanted my work-life balance to look like that. Again, that was something I remember in Australia. They had a great work-life balance. That was always something I pulled along with me. And a lot of PTs, they don't come in and say, right, what do you want to earn? What do you want your diary to look like? But you've got to realise it's going to take time to get there. In the beginning, and I remember some of the PTs. I do remember some of the more established PTs. At the beginning, I was hungry and I was hunting. They were like, "You're going to burn out. You're going to burn out in 5 years' time, and you carry on like you are." And I always hang on to them words and laugh sometimes because I think I feel more energetic now than what I did 25 years ago.
I always haven't stopped, even for all the years I've known you, man. You just stayed the same.
I have a
always had high energy, always been in great nick, but you just stayed the same all the way through. It's great.
And even now, like example today, when we recorded this, I got a manic week next week. Well, I just opened up a Sunday this week just to fill it up. I've been in since 5. I thought, you know what? It shows that in batch of clients, he's still willing to go above and beyond. And if I get any quiet spells in my diary, I'll first thing I do is I send my current clients a message. Guys, I got a load of clients away. Anyone want any extra slots? You've got to hunt. You've got to keep filling them diaries up. And a lot of PTs, I tell you what, I got a 2-hour gap. I'll even cancel a third. Once I got a 3-hour gap, I can do something with that. They don't get them hunger. They got to get that hunger back, which will build their business and hit all their financial goals.
Yeah. I think that's a really pertinent point, actually, and having a reason why and curating almost your Everest, isn't it?
Yeah.
That is ultimately what you want to achieve as a business owner, is kind of that optimal operating North Star, whatever you want to call it. You've defined that from an early stage, and then you've become the master of your own destiny, and you've pursued that target. And I think with the point around instant gratification these days, a lot of people fall off the bandwagon as they're progressing and never actually experience the highs of achieving their Everest, getting to the top of the mountain. Yeah. So in the early days, and what major kind of hurdles did you have to overcome in order to keep moving in that positive direction towards what you defined as your North Star?
There was a few, really. Obviously, as we touched on back in the, gym, not gym managers, the club managers, very often they always had a little bit of a bee in their bonnet with PTs, self-employed PTs. They never liked them earning. They used to have an element of control. Like we used to run off different systems to you guys. The best system is a rental system that you guys run. When you go into, when gyms try and have percentage systems and all the rest of it, then the PTs are earning more than the club managers. It creates carnage. They used to always be making life hard for you when you wanted to work harder, which we always found bizarre. Then you'd have times of year. You'd have I remember Story. I used to have a lot of the wags in training a lot of the Swansea City footballers' wives, which was great. It's an ego booster. You got all the wives in, but they would, from FA Cup final day to probably end of September, they'd go missing. And so I used to have about 30 sessions a week with them. And all of a sudden then I would fill them, but then I'd be getting rid of my normal clients, said to get them back in. And then all of a sudden you've got to be careful because that's coming through. So I realised then, if they want to stick, if they want to keep them slots during the summer holidays, they can either pay for them or they can just get back in line when they come in. And I categorise them. So, your July and Augusts would be quiet, your Decembers would be quiet. So you've got to learn that's when you should be taking your time off. That's when you should be doing some business building stuff, is when your quiet months are. Learned a bit there. And apart from that, really, there's been, I've loved this industry so much. If it'd been an organisation like you guys around to hook into, I think I'd still be working in a commercial gym to this day. But obstacle-wise, mate, the biggest thing I think early on you have is your earnings might take a bit longer to get there than some careers. So you'll have, say, an electrician go straight in, work 40, 50 hours a week. And so, of course, if your mate's an electrician and you're building your business, and your business can be a little bit, so a little bit up and down until you find time to get that stability, know what your numbers are, know how to work your finances. So youngsters can have that obstacle, and then they might have their friends say, well, there's an apprenticeship going on something else, and they can be pulled away. And I actually had a story, I think it was before me and you met, James. There was a guy called Tim. He was a fantastic PT, Premier trained, did the course before me. A real in good shape PT. And me and him were like chalk, like two peas in a pod in there, you know what I mean? We had an unbelievable business. And when I go away, probably touch on this later, I always had a philosophy, and I still do to this day. When I'm on holiday, I'll offer my clients to other PTs to go and train when I'm away, confident that they'll come back. If they don't come back, I've looked after the industry, because if they don't come back, me or them are doing something wrong. When me and Tim were like two peas in a pod, he was in great shape. He had a wonderful PT business. To this day, in a commercial gym, one of the best businesses I think I see anyone else have. And he got pulled away by one of his mates who had a great carpentry business, was offering him. It was at the time where we were having a few battles, and he got pulled away. And I bumped into him about 8 or 9 years later in town, and he regretted every minute of it. He said, you know what? He said, I follow you a little bit on social media. It was when it all kicked off. And he said, I shouldn't have gone. He said his mate had offered him a big bumper pay to come and work, as a carpenter, and all the rest of it. And I think he got pulled from an industry he loved for money when he would have got there. It's just sometimes can be a steadier climb when you're building your own self-employed business, and it's a one-to-one business, and you're trying to get all the pieces in place, So I think temptation could pull some new PTs away because they want, like you stated, they want instant gratification. That never exists. Like I had like a 10-year plan, really, to say, right, in 10 years I want to be earning X amount, I want a solid business there, I want to be working these hours, and then you can start some side hustles, and then you might want to buy a few properties, you can do whatever you want to do then. But first of all, get your main hustle solid, get it fixed, get it secure, get a waiting list for your client, for your business to come in. And well, you got a model for that now. You got a master trainer scheme, which is fantastic. If I'd had one of them, I would have had a load of people under me, because the amount of business I turned away.
It's the common issue, isn't it, with personal trainers, is when you built kind of your operating hours and you filled your diary, what do you do then? You've reached your ceiling of opportunity. Yeah. But there's ways beyond that, 100%. But it sounds to me, Andrew, you really worked out from an early stage that there are seasonal trends.
100%.
And you just embraced it. Yeah. And probably utilised that time effectively. Yeah. To again keep that momentum going. Yeah. Towards your ultimate goal. I know you really well, so I can understand that you would not let yourself off the hook as well. Yeah. You wouldn't accept not hitting that target.
100%. Even to this day, James, I got a goal. It's a silly little goal, but by the end of play on Tuesday, I like 25 sessions in the bag. It's been a goal of mine. And if I have 23, I'm gutted.
By Tuesday?
By Tuesday, right? So I have a monster Monday. I'm in at 5 a.m, right? Yeah. And I have a monster Monday and Tuesday. If I'm on 23, I'm gutted with myself. I'm there, And it's a goal because I know I've nailed the front end of the week. The week's won then. And then, then you're just steamrolling on. It's a silly goal I've had myself. 2 months today, start at 5 a.m. And by the way, for the young PTs who don't want to start at 5 o'clock, if I give up at 5 o'clock every week, I work 4 or 5 a.m, say 30 quid an hour. That's £500 a month. That's $6,000 a year to have a lie-in on 5 o'clock. If I say I want to lie in at 6, it's $12,000 a year. It's a lot of money to give up, so that's why I want to get in at 5. I only get in at 5 because I haven't got 2 6s. So I might as well get in at 5.
Well, you enjoy your holidays, don't you? So there's no getting around that.
No, and it's, the other is, I tell you what is one tricky month that some PTs will get caught out on, is people think January is one of these months, January the 1st, it takes till the end of January to get going. I tell people that, and I have some PTs reaching out to me, hey mate, how are you finding this month? I'm like, don't worry, February will be bonkers. I said, because people are skiing, they're on holiday. It's all sorts of stuff going on. It can be a slow start. And what I try to tell PTs is, don't take your foot off the gas in December. Ram it all on, because believe it or not, I find sometimes people can be more motivated this side of Christmas than what they are the other side. You know, and then they'll probably want a couple of weeks to chill after December the 20th, you know, and it takes them a bit of time to get going again, you know?
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. I think people want to get a head start a lot of the time of this traditional New Year's resolution sort of theme. But, you know, I think training trends are getting more and more consistent.
Yeah, they are.
Throughout the calendar year, shall we say. But aside from that, and again, not letting yourself off the hook, you keep yourself in incredible shape.
Yeah.
What's your training regime look like these days?
Oh, yeah, you change as you get a bit older. But I say all the time, James, as you know, if you're not in the shape of your life, the first thing people are going to see is what condition you're in. And I know there's been a little bit of this online thing recently where if you're a PT in shape, you know, be careful, you know, where other PTs are saying, watch them PTs in shape, you know, they're narcissists or whatever. But in my game, when I came in, if you weren't in shape, you wouldn't have had a client. So you've got to get in the shape of your life. And I'm a you know, I live, breathe and sleep it. And I always like, on my social media, once a month, I put my accountability picture up. Some months it might not be as good as the last one. But you know what? What it does, it takes a lot of pressure off you, because, you know, if you're in shape, your clients are less likely to challenge your advice. They know anything about you. He obviously knows what he's talking about, or she knows what she's talking about. I say it's your best retention tool. It's your best sales tool. It's one of the best tools you can have in your armory, and it's in your control. So yeah, I've got a very simple philosophy of I do 3 strength and conditioning sessions a week. I do 2 core and chin up sessions a week. I hike as much as I can. I fast once a week. You know, and I have a daily monitor system of my calories and my macros. People say it's a lot, but it's the job I chose.
Yes.
You know, it's the job I chose. I chose to be a PT. So these are just me looking after my business. You know, so I tell all PTs, if you get in the shape of your life, you've got everything to gain and nothing to lose. There's not one thing to lose, and be proud of it. Don't hold back on that social media post you want to put up with you in shape. I know you're thinking of who's going to say what, but you know what? Forget that. You know, give them. If someone comes in and says something to me, I just give them a love heart. I do, and then you kill them with kindness. You know, you know. So I guarantee you'll get far more business off being in the shape of your life than what you will or not. Because, like I said, people buy a personal trainer, not personal training. They buy a coach, not coaching. You know, and that will never change. Then they'll get to know your personality second, and it'll be knowledge third. You know.
I love that, and I love your candidness on it as well, because, you know, a lot of people are nervous about sharing their own thoughts.
Yeah.
These days, for fear of getting reprimanded. But you know, we're in the game of health and well-being.
Absolutely.
And it's important to live those lifestyle traits. Yeah. And I'm sure that inspires your clients, no end, to adopt their own lifestyle. Because we all know you're never going to get results by going to the gym and having PT once a week.
No, definitely not.
This is a 24/7 thing.
And, you know, they say to me, and you know what, you know, you're going to, you know, your clients are going to drift, but if they don't want to see you drifting, would they persecute if I didn't know? But they don't want to see it. They know that, look, you know, we're striving to live a better life, like, you know, a healthier life like you are. Of course, they're never going to live that, you know, that much of a fitness, health and nutrition lifestyle. But what they, you know, like I had a client in Dan the other day, and he said he was sitting on a set, he made us a cup of tea. One of my videos popped. He thought, go on, I'm going to go for a walk. And I put it in a mug, and he just went around the block right here. And I was laughing to myself. And he says, I see you stuff. And I think, I don't know what. You know, and I think that's the message. And you can use a social media page to endorse that. And as you said, don't be afraid of being persecuted, because it's an old saying. I say to people, look, you know, you can't keep everyone happy, so don't attempt it. You know, there's no way. You're better off keeping yourself happy. And as I said, being confident in what you're posting. And if you're not in the shape of your life, well, you've got a great opportunity here as a PT to actually start with a photo and start a progression. You know, so if you're a PT and you see this podcast, you're not in the shape of your life, well, take a photo of yourself, say, you know what, I'm in the fitness game, I've let myself go a little bit, but you watch the space and you run with your own journey. You've got a lovely opportunity in many ways. If I started again, I'd pile on a load of weight, and that's where I'd start. Because you know, the transformation process that you could achieve will get people coming in and saying, you know what, because they probably know that you've got the knowledge at this point, but maybe they want to see if you can implement it.
And I'm a big believer in the power of stories as well. There's
Yeah.
so many fitness professionals around the country who've transformed their lives.
Yeah.
You know, from a physiological point, from a mental health point. And it is inspiring. You can't help but buy into stories
Yeah.
and be inspired and be part of their communities. I think it's a really important point for fitness professionals to be able to convey their story
100%.
in quite a succinct manner as well.
Yeah.
And it's got to be relevant and authentic
Yeah.
and all that sort of stuff as well. But that's really powerful. But I think for you, and if you had a superpower, your superpower is to inspire people to change. 'Cause you do it, you know, for your clients. You actually did it for me. When we were working together in a sporter, I was the manager.
Yeah.
I was in charge of the health and fitness suite and doing all that sort of stuff. And
right, yeah.
I remember opening the club early for you in the morning, so you
One
can
of the
get
best managers I've had.
I'll tell Dan that. Opening the doors at 5 o'clock, even
Yeah.
though the club didn't open till 6.
Yeah.
So you can get that extra hour in. But I found myself and my career going down a path that I wasn't enjoying.
Yeah.
I was at a desk, I was working on spreadsheets and reports, and that wasn't me. You know, I wanted to be coaching people and inspiring people like you did.
Yeah.
So you've been an inspiration as part of my career development as well.
That's very nice to hear, mate.
And undoubtedly, and with all the lives that you've changed over the years. But going back to a sporter, you then made the bold move to transition from a commercial gym to running your own studio.
Yeah.
So talk us through the thought process and the journey of doing that.
Yeah, that was it was a mad spell actually, because I was getting married at that point. I was getting, like I said, we'd had a change in club managers, and usual thing. What came with the change is you wanted to dust up, and I think I was at that point then where I thought, look, if we're not going to get a system in place yet, I can really appreciate what great retention tools we are. I think I was ready then to try and go on my own. So yeah, I was getting married, I had all that, and then I was transitioning out of the gym. So there was a big thing of I had to find a venue, I had to find a location, then you start dealing with landlords and all them problems. So I found this venue not far from my house. But again, what I experienced first of all is all of a sudden it was a 20 grand kit out, and then you've got monthly bills coming out, which can alter and change. The whole dynamics change. Then you've got to worry about whether your clients are going to come with you. Lucky enough, I built up a real good client base. And they all did come, and that would be the story I would tell PTs. If I know a local PT who's tried to do something similar, but he didn't perhaps build the reputation in the commercial gym, and when he's gone, not much is triggered with him, But they all came with me. But in fairness, I always remember advising them to stay in the Glamorgan and carry on doing their other stuff, because it was a good club, and their sport. It was a great club. So I remember saying, look, you're with me once or twice a week. Keep your memberships there, because at the time they were all like, we'll leave it. I said, hold on, calm down. But the transition out of there was difficult, because you got an all new host of bills and things to worry about, council taxes on your venue and God knows what then, rate bills. And as I said, like recently now, I was flooded. I had to re-kit my studio out. You're going to be paying tens of thousands sometimes to do all that. So my tip to a PT would be, if you can establish yourself in a commercial gym, you have a steady flow of clients. Like I was lucky, I'd built up a real good, client base. But then I had to really hit the community stuff harder when I went outside the gym, which we'll touch on. Which, by the way, if I was no matter where I was working, a PT needs to get in their community. I'm sure we'll touch on that a bit later. But yeah, coming out, it was a bit scary. As I said, a big load of financial outlays at that period of my life. And it was a big move, but yeah, forward on 12, 13 years. And I still got a bustling business there now. I still love it now. I still got clients who were with me on day one in the Glamorgan who train there. Yeah. They've been with me 20 odd years, lots of them. I probably got about 15, 20 clients who were with me 20 years ago. It's been bizarre really, because I sometimes think, God, you keep coming to me and conversation flowers and all the rest of it,
A loyalty is massive with your clients, and it's a two-way street. It has to be with the personal trainer as well. But it's quite nice actually to hear that, and that you made that transition, and your kind of suggestion to the clients was to continue
100%.
with their lifestyle habits
Yeah.
as well. We touched on it earlier. So as well as coming to the studio, it's not a membership type gym.
No.
So still balancing the personal provision with doing some lifestyle stuff is a really important part. I think what they did well back in the day is have a really good kind of community within the club.
Well,
as
it's
well.
about protecting. I say it a lot, James. Number one, you've got to protect the industry. So what a lot of modern PTs are not thinking about with their actions is the industry. You know, it's an industry. So the first thing you have to do with all your actions is think about the industry, because you know you can damage the industry so quickly. By social media and by sort of by your behaviour really. So for me, it was a good health club. Me having issues with the layout of the way they were trying to control PTs was nothing at all to do with that being a great health club for my clients to still be a part of outside the sessions with me. And I tell everyone that you get nothing. You've got to protect the industry. I call it the golden goose. You've got to protect the golden goose first, haven't you? And that's got to be in everything you do, all your social media posts, all your actions. It's an industry. We're all in many ways we're all colleagues. Every fitness professional, every PT, we're all colleagues in some shape or form. We're just running from different ships,
If people are listening to this then and they're in that position, so they're in a commercial gym, they're thinking of a studio, what in your 12 years experience of running your own studio, what would be 2 pros and 2 cons?
Well, the pros are obviously you haven't got to answer to anyone. So you're in your own position to build your own business as you want. You can maybe evolve off to different philosophies, have big group training sessions with no hassles of other people around, and you can open and close whenever you want. They would be the pros. The cons will be you'll have a huge overheads, which can alter at any time. If you buy your own building, that's might take a long time to get that money back. The cons could be the financial ones, and then it's the supplier customers. In a commercial gym, you have a steady supply of customers coming through that door anytime. You basically it's like you want a piece of cake and you're in the cake shop. Well, when you leave the cake shop, you then got to go and find where the cake shop is. And knowing how hungry some of the fitness professionals today, I don't think they'll hunt it down. First thing I did when I went into my place, I spent the first 6 months really hunting everything down, making sure that everything was solid. I went to BNI meetings, I'd done it all. I worked 7 days a week around the clock to make sure it was all booming and got it all in place. I'm not sure if that drive is here today. So if I had my way again and I'd had a better, a system where it was just, look, it's X amount a month and you can go for gold, I'd still be working in a commercial gym today. Without a shadow of doubt.
Absolutely. And you built this business with your studio in an era where kind of block payments are quite common.
Yeah.
Nowadays, direct debits are becoming more and more common. So I guess that would give a fitness professional a little bit more kind of guarantee in terms of the income that's going to be coming into their business on a monthly basis.
Yeah.
So that's great. It's great to understand if anyone's kind of in your position, what the pros and cons might look like. Yeah,
they do the numbers, I would tell them. Sit down and ask yourself how much more you think you're going to make, because I think they might be surprised that they might not be, what are you planning on changing that you can't do in a commercial gym? Because, think about it, you're leaving a place where there's maybe a couple of thousand members to a place where there's not. So what are you planning on changing to combat that difference? That would be the big question. I guess you could extend that to online coaching as well these days. Yeah. So we've seen a big boom, haven't we? Since COVID, that went high and it's kind of plateaued out somewhat. But you can maybe take that sense check that I'm a successful PT in the gym. I can therefore, bring my provision online. I can work with more people. I can break down my geographical boundaries. Yeah. And that sense check will help them move in that direction. Yeah. But I think nowadays what we see as optimal is probably hybrid situations, 70% in person, 30% online. But what about the coaches? Would you give the coaches who go straight online, do no provision in the gym, where do you see them
these days, and
I find it bizarre. I think the online PT world, I think, is really lost, really. I think you got a lot of these influencers or characters who've managed to nail it. Something like Joe Wicks or James Smith, they managed to nail a niche market. Well, of course, I think then, there's some real good people in shape who do a lot of this online stuff and celebrities. But then I think if a PT hasn't got 10 years under his belt of a bustling, successful, boots on the ground business, and he's thinking of an online business, 100% online business, I think they're bonkers. I really don't see it working. And there's so much free advice online today. Even you put a core workout in YouTube, you got 1 million of them. There's so much. You got the AI stuff going on. There's so much free advice online these days. Everywhere you look, there's free guidance and free advice. Or all the fitness people you follow on Instagram, they'll be giving free workouts on their Instagram pages. I do it myself. They're carrot danglers, and I'm hoping some of my clients follow them. I'm hoping some of my non-clients follow them and get enjoyment from them. Because what you're doing is giving some free content out there and getting a return. But I struggle to see where call it someone called Sam, who's just got 15, 20 hours a week, decides they want to be an online coach. I don't know how they're going to build a business to really hit their own financial goals. I just, like in COVID, I subscribed to a few of these things to see exactly what was happening. And they were just pinning, me and my wife subscribed to them, the difference in what we were wearing at the time, and our goals are completely different and everything was different. We were just getting pinged the same program. So there's a lot of online stuff going on out there. And I think PTs get drawn into it. They see it as a chance to earn all this extra money. I actually go the other way. I see a danger sign when I see a PT who hasn't got a busting on the ground business and do it all. I think he's on the verge of leaving the business. He doesn't know it, but I think if he is trying to go down the online route before he's even established a bustling business for 5 to maybe 10 years on a gym floor, I think he's going down a dangerous path, or she's going down a dangerous path. I think they really are going down a path.
Yeah, I agree. I think there are some phenomenal online coaches
absolutely
who build really authentic businesses, and I think the issue lies is where you've got these cut and paste jobs, and you're looking at mass volume. Your length of stay of your membership is rubbish because the quality isn't there. And it's a shame, and I think it has been damaging to the industry.
100%.
However, I think the industry's woken up a little bit and is moving in a really positive direction.
Yeah, I think the way it could be a simple formula is the first bit of online you do could just be to support your own current customers and possibly a few of their friends who can't get in with you. And I think that's okay. But then the danger of that is maybe your PT customers will ditch your PT to just pay you 20 quid a month to have some online information. But I just don't, I'm really on the fence with the online thing. You've hit the nail on the head, James. There's some wonderful online coaches out there, but a lot of them tend to be, they found a niche market or a little bit celebrity based, or they're usually in unbelievable condition as well at times. So I just feel sometimes if you're missing 4, 5 or 6 of the career steps, I'm trying to go straight there. I've known hundreds of PTs over the years. I've known very few who's made it as an online coach. I know a couple of real good local lads in an unbelievable condition, and they both tried it. And they just didn't work. They said they were just getting people signing up for a month and they were dropping off, and it just wasn't there. They persevered and they spent fortunes on it. And that's the other thing, you can spend tens of thousands on these sites.
Yeah, and arguably it's been an area that's disabled personal trainers from experience the industry and the fruits of the industry as well. Yeah. Not being able to achieve, their 50, 60, 100k a year in the gym because they've gone down a coaching online route too early. Yeah. You mentioned a great point earlier, and in terms of the length of stay of your clients. You mentioned 20 years, some of them be with you for.
Yeah. I got a load of them. Probably half my client base have been over 15 years, mate.
Can't shake them off.
Yeah, honestly, they love them to bits, but they're not going anywhere.
It's great because clearly they've hit their target and they've changed their target throughout their time of working with you. Yeah. But what have you done to instill that loyalty and build the community? I know you've built a phenomenal community But do you want to talk a little bit about how you've achieved that and what you do?
Yeah. Well, one thing I do very quickly is I put them into a friend group. You know, when my clients come in, they become a part of my club, and very much when they're a part of my club, we go out, we do sort of walks and rambles regular, coffee mornings regular. They're all on very a friendship business. And they get to know each other, and they all do a lot of network business with each other. I make sure that I do all my business with my clients, by the way, so that's cement. So I would tell any PT, if you, for argument's sake, are having your books done, if you are training an accountant and you're having your books done with another accountant, I'm not sure how that's going to work. If you're basically... I don't know, you've got a painter, for argument's sake, you're training a painter and you're renovating your house and you have your house, they're aware you're renovating your house, they know you're going to need a painter. So you've got to use, it's got to be, business for business. That's a massive one. Get them all interlinking with each other. Get them all meeting each other. I've had weddings through the studio, through my business, and get them all doing business with each other, which, again, coffee mornings, rambles, hot and cold therapy. If I'm going on the beach for a dip, then I'll ask a load of the gang to come down. These are all hugely important. They all tend to, when they tend to train after each other, they all know each other. As I said, they got friendships outside my PT business now as well. And that's been something I remember at the Glamorgan 20-odd years ago. But, in Swansea, we've got something called Beaujolais Day. The third Thursday of every November, Swansea closes down, all goes out and drinks wine and eats steak. As a vegan,
it's a very interesting thing. I think Swansea's the only place on the planet who celebrate Beaujolais Day.
Beaujolais Day. It's a mad day, but I remember, taking all my clients out on Beaujolais Day, 20, 30 strong. I was doing that all the time, going out for regular, meals and nights out with my clients. And to this day, it still baffles me why PTs don't do community-based activities. Because otherwise, what you're saying to your client, you're like a shop. Okay, you're going to spend, money with me, and then you can leave. Well, I make sure that when they spend money with me, they feel like they're getting, it's like your club card points, your nectar points. These are all incentives. They know that, hold on, Andrew's doing business with me. I'm also doing business with this other customer. You're tying them into a web. And I've been naturally doing that for 20 odd years. And I think my clients feel like they're part of a club. Yeah. They don't want to leave the club. So even to the point, you've rarely got to have any money chats to them. They tend to come with their block ready, thinking, right, I don't want to lose my membership to the club. Yeah. That's been a part. They all, it's like when you bump into people who know you, I so-and-so's a part of your club, and they actually talk like that, So I think the basics of it, James, I've created a club-like feel of my clients who all interlink. We all interlink with them. We do lots together. And for argument's sake, if I was finishing a session, I might be training, Sarah and Donna, and I got a gap after them, and I might go for coffee with them. Because I'm free, don't grab coffee. That's, rather than just go and play on my phone for an hour and scroll through social media. You're getting to know them, what's going on, chatting away, and all the rest of it. So I think I've always behaved like that with my clients, treat them like friends, get them into my network and my club. Yeah,
absolutely. And creating that network is massively important, and friendships they go a long way.
100%.
I think if someone's the seed of doubt plants and they're thinking about leaving PT, that's maybe something that will keep them in the game, which is fantastic.
Yeah, if they're just a number to you, like on a spreadsheet, they'll know that, and they won't feel the love for it, And other PTs clients will probably know, well, hold on, my friend's with Andrew, and she's getting a bit more than this, and that'll be a problem,
And obviously, one of your community building activities has been the resurrection of the Ramblers, the Mad Ramblers Club in Swansea. So, where did that start? Because that's an interesting group.
Yeah, it was mad actually, because I think you're going back now about 9-10 years ago. We had this idea about, where we live is the Gower Peninsula, beautiful area, about walking from Rossley to Swansea. I think I remember checking on Google Maps, it said 22 miles or something. I thought, it's not bad, boys. We can all walk 22 miles. Well, that was as the crows flies. It was 33. And we done it in November, almost daylight. So it was, we all turned up there in November, walking with a pair of the old Gazelles on, bottle of liquid in your back pocket, not prepared at all. As you know, one of the boys, Christy, on the PT, he turned up with a rucksack and 4 cans of Carlin and a pair of jeans from River Island, you know. So we were all an organised group of boys, and it was about 12 of us or 13 of us. We set off, and then we just had this gear. You know, we were all in such a mess. I literally couldn't pull. You know, the chafing was horrific. Right, we were all unprepared. So from that moment on, we developed the name the Mad Ramblers after what we did. A couple of us were hospitalised, so it was a hell of a experience. So from then we evolved into a proper rambling group that basically goes all over Wales. I think we've got about 100 miles of the Welsh coast path left to do, 860 odd, and we chip away all over Wales, and we go out once or twice a month as a big group, and we tend to go out as smaller little clusters. But lots of these boys do go out as well on their own. So we got a unique little group called the Mad Ramblers, and it's all my clients basically. And like I said, that's an attraction on its own, because when them photos go on social media, and whenever you see the videos, it always, you know, it's like being back playing football and rugby again. It's like in the changing room. It's that banter all the way through, and you can do it. You know, anyone and everyone is capable of going out walking. So we would have philosophies. If we're doing a 30 mile and we got someone who isn't as fit, they might just tie in for 10 miles of it. So we got some philosophies, but it's a great group, and you know, these boys, they've been instrumentally supportive, you know, of me and my business for, you know, over the years, in fairness to them. And they do so much business together as well, because, you know, you're out for 12 hours, and like I said, these days are memorable. They're so good for your physical, mental and emotional health, you know. They are really memorable, you know.
Getting outdoors is massive, isn't it, for just mental health and physical health as well. But I mean, I think the personalities, having met a couple of the Mad Rambling group, the personalities, you can see how you would have so much camaraderie, so much banter, and everyone feels part of the club. It's a phenomenal sort of concept that you built there. But I think the chaps, this is predominantly men, isn't it? There's females involved. They have a network there where they can talk openly, they can share their thoughts, they can, you know, do the stuff that maybe men avoid doing a lot of the time as well.
100%, mate. And like, these boys are business boys. They don't like taking days off work. And so one thing used to amaze me is, you know, I train these lads, and one of my philosophies is always to try and work with them on their work-life balance, because if I don't try and calm them down, they'll work for 25 hours a day and 7 days a week. So for me, I was always amazed that they will take 1 or 2 Fridays off a month and go on a ramble, which means they're not in work. And that was always a big thing for some of them. You know, they're having a day away from work, a day out in nature. You know, it was a laugh a minute. And we built, they say, you know, the Mad Ramblers was like, how far are we doing this week? Oh, we're only doing 36 miles this week, you know. And, you know, it became a laugh. Like, once a year, we do what we call the G50, the full Gower 50 in one walk, you know. Wow. And it's an endurance test. And as I said, all that aside, it gets them, it's a physical activity that they love doing. You know, and the one thing I would tell PTs is, don't be afraid to put activities on when you're not getting paid for it, because the payment comes later. The payment comes, you know, and again, we touched on this word earlier, Jim, you did, about instant gratification. You know, you've got to be willing to put stuff out there, like, you know. I always remember when I started as a PT and I was giving a load of tasters out. I remember Hugh, do you remember Hugh? Yeah. And he said, you know, these girls have got plenty of money, you shouldn't be giving them free. Forward on 6 weeks, they were all my clients. So you could see who was a bit older than me. You could see that, you know, that if you took that philosophy, you know, you know, so of course you've got to be willing to give some stuff out, you know.
It's all part of the package solution, and the part of being involved in your community is you get all this wraparound support as well. 100%. And I know it's not just exclusive to the Ramblers.
Everyone's welcome.
You've got your social media, PDFs, you give dietary advice. There's a whole wraparound support mechanism, which I think is so important for personal trainers to have their own version of that.
And what you'll find then with say even a rambling group, and I don't know why every PT on the planet doesn't organise a walking group, because then photos go on live and everyone wants to be a part of something. What we forget as fitness professionals, we've usually got decent circles around us socially, usually, but a lot of people haven't. For a lot of people, they haven't got the sort of networks we've usually got around us. You know, very often personal trainers have usually got big social circles. But so a lot of people are happy to be a part of something different. They may not want to start off in the gym with you, but when they start walking with you and they start to speak to some of the other clients and say, so what's it like up there? No, I love it. I go up and see them once a week. It really sorts me out. I can hear them chats going on in the group. Then they'll say, okay, have you got any space for me? We'll put them on a waiting list, but they might join in with their friend. They might pair up. And again, that creates security as well, which I do like tools, by the way, as personal training clients, because A, the likelihood of two of them being ill at once is slim, and B, it creates a little bit of, friendly competition, So I'm not a fan of, I call it 3 and me, as a sort of one-to-one basis, But yeah, I do like tools, but you'll find, on any walk, they'll, if someone comes in that's not your client on a walk, they very quickly will become your client off the back of that walk alone. They'll want to become your client,
100%. I think you might be a case to get the Mad Ramblers in. We'll do a podcast
definitely.
episode.
Yeah, definitely.
Aside from that, and running a business it's extremely hard. You've had to navigate some major life events in the last 10 years as well.
Yeah.
As well as operating a sole trader business. You're a one-man band. You've been looking after your clients, looking after, what you have to do with life. When life throws you curveballs, how do you keep on top of everything?
You just got to get organised and structured, I think, James. I spend big chunks of my week, for argument's sake, 4 hours on a Sunday. Usually be between the hours of, say, maybe 5 and 9 is organising that week ahead. My food prep, my client prep, everything's organised. There are all my plans in place. I'm old school. My diary, I got a paper diary and a to-do list. I bought this book, actually. I found this one, and it's a to-do list book. Okay. And I'm old school, and I go through the list, even as trivial as text James, that's got to be on there. And I find it works for me. At the end of every day, I look on my list, and if there's anything left on, I'll convert to the next list. And I'm very old school, with the way I run my business. But I dedicate time for organising my business. So in my diary, there'll be little slots. Business organisation, and they are so vital. Even tidying up your paperwork and stuff needs a bit of time. You can't leave these things evolve on. It's always looking at your business, making sure the numbers are right, looking at your books, and then go through your client sheets, who's due, make sure that I got a philosophy, when your client's one session out, send them a WhatsApp message, and make sure on a consultation process that they're aware, that you have that chat with them. Is it okay if I text you when you're one session away from the your block? Yeah. So that goes out. So that's an easy philosophy for me. So even at the end of my working day, I'll make sure I've gone through everyone's blocks. Where is everyone? Texts get fired out there. And yeah, just organising, you might have to dedicate 5 hours to 10 hours a week for the organising of a business that you got to do yourself. But, they would be sometimes 5 hours of people are watching maybe nonsense on TV or scrolling.
100%, yeah.
And I've even got to the point now, mate, where I organise my social media time. I give myself dedicated time slots. I find this better. So I wake up in the morning. Once I've sorted myself out, I allow myself 10 minutes. Then I allow myself 20 minutes for lunch. And my social media time is dedicated in my diary. Otherwise, you'll just get lost on there. Now I might have to answer messages on there, and I won't upload a training video, but it's on my social media time, I
think it's so important, especially for fitness professionals evolving in the industry. Having a strict daily method of operation
100%
is critical for your business success, because again, it just comes back to building your muscle memory and building your strong habits.
Yeah.
Whether that's a daily ritual or it's a to-do list in your case, that's so impactful for your business and the longevity of your career.
100%. You just find you sleep better and everything. Right, hang on, there's 3 tasks I didn't do today. Do I need to do anything now? No, they can go on to tomorrow. Bang, in they go. I remember reading this Mel Robbins book. I think it's called the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 count backwards. And you're going to do something. If you're hesitating, count 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and just do it. And I do that all the time. It's a great book. I can't remember. I think it's called the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 or something. It's a great book by Mel Robbins. You've got. It goes back to treating it like a business, not a hobby. And if you're running your own business, you do everything yourself. Make sure everything's everything's on point, make sure your books are up to date. And the good thing about your PT they've got you guys to anchor into that as well to help you. And then they're struggling with it and they're not sure of. But like I said, however your method is, you've got to dedicate time to running your business. You know, on a Sunday, you know, if you are partying before you're planning your next week's diary and business and all the rest of it, then, you know, you're going to get home that night, you're going to be all over the shop, you're going to lose Monday, and then you're going to be chasing your tail. And then that's when, you know, little issues become bigger than they should be. You know, and that's what starts causing problems then. You know, and these things are tiny issues at that point if you deal with them straight away, but they become monsters as you go down the line then, you know? Yeah. So
I think you're right. I think you've got to address these issues straight off the bat, because you just end up becoming flustered.
Oh, definitely.
And almost unable to do any meaningful action then, because of it. But that's been really insightful, and we as a rule of thumb, albeit this is our pilot episode, we're going to give the last word to the guest before we wrap up. So, in your own words, what would be the one key bit of advice you would give a new personal trainer coming into our sector?
I would say focus on earning a living before you focus on earning a fortune. You know, as the number one bit of advice, focus on earning a living before you focus on earning a fortune. And that would be what I would lie.
I think that's a phenomenal last word and a brilliant way to end this first podcast episode. Andrew, it's been a pleasure, mate. Thank you
thanks
so
for
much.
having me.
So much for your time, energy. I've absolutely loved it.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and thanks, as I said, thanks to yourself and your company, your PT. As I said, you guys have become good friends. You personally over the last 15 years, and you were a huge part of my my career as well, James. I think when you come in, you're one of the modern fitness managers who saw where the industry was going wrong and wanted to turn it around in the right direction, and you've taken your own company there with your PT, who are, you know, inspirational really in changing this industry around, and I think you guys are going to do it. You know, I think PTs, the quality you guys are producing is far greater than I've seen for a long time. So yeah, thanks to you guys, thanks for having me, and I look forward to seeing you in the future.
That's a wrap. And class fit.